Hey guys, I'm sitting here knitting on my sample hat for one of my patterns, my hat patterns, so that I can make a trip over to Port Townsend tomorrow with the sample hat that I have been procrastinating on. And guess what exciting news I have. I have new friends. Let me see. I'm trying to film this the least obtrusive way that I can because they're still skittish. We have 4 sheep on the property that I'm on loan for the season. Loan a sheep. Aren't they beautiful? I just love sitting near my favorite animal while I'm knitting with their wool. The black one is a Wiltshire that self-molts apparently and does not need to be sheared. And the 3 white ones are Finn sheep. Probably the most common breed, I think. Although, I'm not a sheep expert. I just love them. They have arrived yesterday, so they're just getting used to their surroundings, but they've already eaten a bunch of tall grass that we have, that the property owner has. And I feel very grateful to be able to live in this spot and have new friends. Love you, sheep. And I just thought I would share just briefly a few updates on projects that I've been working on. First off, I have this is the 3rd and final hat pattern that I designed, and what am I trying to say? Oh my gosh, I can see the mistake on this. Okay, see how each of these trees is supposed to have these little crosses, kind of, and then this one doesn't. Now, if this was you and you had done all this stranded color work, and this is supposed to be a sample, a store sample for people, for a store that is willing to sell my patterns, my hat patterns, would you take this out and redo it? I mean, it's correct on the pattern, obviously. It's just, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I will be taking this out. But anyway, it's good that I saw this on screen because I didn't see it in front of me. Anyway, this is a gorgeous dark green, and I'm trying to just this ray of sun here. Maybe it shows a little bit more of the green. Otherwise, it looks pretty black almost on screen. But I also, as I was doing this, maybe this is good reason to take this out. As I was making it, I realized that this would be perfect for a stranded colorwork tutorial to show when there is such a long gap between colors, switching colors, that I could just show how I do it. It's not the only way by any chance, but it might help convince anyone to buy my hat patterns, because so far they have not sold. I gave away, when I first released them several years ago, there was some international tree day, and I gave away the pattern free, and since then, so like I think it was like 125 people downloaded it for free on that day, and I thought, oh, that'll kickstart my knit pattern designing business. No, no one else bought it, but 120 people got it free. So it also has been improved since then, and I've reworked. I made some corrections in the pattern, actually. Okay, so I think I'll be redoing that hat and hopefully getting a way to film my hands doing the work slowly. It's quite a trick even with a tripod to try to get the angle of filming your hands clear enough for someone else to, really get the instructions. So I would much prefer to teach someone in person and have an in-person class, which I've been brainstorming about. But my main obstacle to that is my severe allergies to dogs, because amazingly, I live in an area of the country that has the highest per capita dog ownership, apparently. And I have had lifelong allergies to dogs so severe that I was not able to attend birthday parties as a kid that other kids could, because if they had a dog in the house, I wasn't able to last more than 15 minutes without getting unable to breathe, basically. And I actually I was allergy tested by an allergist who said in 30 years he had not seen such a severe reaction to dog as my case. So I have had to avoid them all my life, which is why as I show you little glimpses of, there was 2 images, I think, in this video coming up that include the excitement of sheep that we now have. When I say we, I mean the landowner that I rent from. There are 4 sheep that are on loan for the season. I didn't know there was such a thing that you could actually borrow a sheep. but they are literally, I've been at sheep farms, and they are literally the only animal I have found so far that has hair or fur that I am not allergic to. So I'm allergic pretty severely to horses. Goats may be similar to sheep. I've been around goats, but not specifically in a goat farm. And so I've often dreamed of living around sheep. And so this is like satisfying some of that sheep. But as you may know, most sheep farms also have dogs. So this is a way that I can observe them. Right now they're sleeping in this little patch of woods on the property. And they are chowing down the foliage, which is great for less that I have to mow. So anyway, I'm excited about the sheep for that reason, that they are literally the only animal that I can safely interact with, other than fish, which is why I also have fish. So now I had made the Luné shawl by Natasha Hornby, and this is a black and white image of it. I think it's absolutely stunning. And so I decided to make, this is the Yara. And it's very similar construction to the Luné shawl that I finished, but it's what I absolutely love the way she writes her patterns, very, very clear step by step. And often you learn a new technique, like at least I had not ever seen some of the stitches that are in her pattern, the two patterns now that I'm making of hers. I'm not like an expert on her pattern. She's made many beautiful garments, but so far I'm just making two shawls. And I just want to check out this, like, blew my mind, this stitch. It is two color broken, what is it called? Two color broken seed stitch. And honestly, as I'm doing it, it looks like fish scales. And it has so much depth because you have the two colors going on each row. And as I'm making it, I'm like, how is this possible? Like, I'm doing the stitches as directed, but I don't know, I can't seem to see how it is actually possible to get this effect. And so this is a big portion of the between the mosaic sections of the shawl, and it's just such a cool stitch. I've never seen it before, so this is another reason why I just love, working on her patterns. The wool that I was able to find on pretty affordable. This is the first time I've worked with Knitting for Olive, but this is less expensive than the regular Knitting for Olive because it's called No Waste Wool, and it's 50% recycled wool and 50% extra fine traceable non-mulesed merino. So that is awesome. So it's if you care about sustainability, it's good for that. And then I am using, for the ultimate contrast, I'm using a chocolate and cream. And yeah, so this was fairly affordable, and it's just wonderful squishy wool. So I'm sure the final product will be, it's even with the recycled wool, it's not like it's rough or scratchy. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, and then the only other update that I have is that I have a sleeve almost done. I thought I was going to say it was done, but no, it's still not done. This is my 2-year project, my 2-year sweater that I mentioned having, where I just don't like to do sleeves, and I'm like almost down to the cuff. So there is progress, but I hope that I intend that by winter I will be able to wear this, because this is just such an awesome pattern. It's the Azor sweater by Orlan Souche. But just that pattern is such an incredible effect, especially with this kind of blue tinged on the red. And this is a lamb's wool. That is the lamb's wool from Scotland. So it's woolly wool, but I've been told that when it washes out, it really softens, and it already, just by handling it for 2 years, has softened. It'll be a miracle when this is finished. So that is a little bit of progress, and that is about it on the knits for now. Yeah, so I'll be redoing this that I spent a day on. I can make one of these in a day, but I'll wait till my next day off work and remake that. Basically, I'm using blue sky fibers, the amount of wool that the store owner gave me to knit up my sample. I already have a sample of this hat that I made with my own yarn, but because she was trying to make kits to sell my hat patterns, we need to know exactly how much the weight of the yarn, so that she might not have to include a full skein in a kit. She could just like break it up for the exact amount weight of the wool that I need. And so far it's looking like what we guessed is working out great for the yardage. And it's just wonderful, squishy. Blue Sky Fibers is the wool stock. It's like, this isn't even washed, and once it washes, it's almost a felted effect, like it just blooms and fluffs up even more. It's very fluffy yarn and soft. So yeah, I love that she has this idea, and I honestly, I don't know who in their right mind would want to make a hat in July, but I'm assuming that this might be something that could happen in winter or fall. And I would love to offer to teach a class on maybe how on the stranded color work, if she was open to that. Oh yeah, but she does have dogs in the store. Anyway, that was my whole thing about the dogs. The reason I was saying that is that so many stores local to me allow dogs in, and many crafters have dogs, I've found, or cats, both of which I'm allergic, but dogs are my top of toxic list. So that is why, if everything was perfect and I had a dream world, I would have a studio, be able to afford a studio in my house and offer workshops that I could teach in a dog-free environment, and just invite people to come and work on a specific technique or project. I've even, in the past, I had taught at a community center, beginning knitting, and I loved that for a summer. And I contacted them again, and no response, about possibly offering a class, because they're currently doing community classes. But I do know that that's another space that does from time to time have dogs coming through, and they're not like banned from the space, which is fine. I don't have anything against dog owners. It's just, it makes my life challenging. It's been kind of almost close to a disability, I would say. An example of this is, what I find this kind of funny, not funny, but one time I was going to a therapist that had a client with a seeing eye dog, and there's, obviously I wouldn't want to, I would want that person to get the help they need. But it ended up that I had to give up going to that. I had to just completely leave that person's practice because they chose that client over me, essentially, because it just became impossible for me to sit in the room if a dog was going to be there for a full hour or once a week. So anyway, this is why I'm saying this theme of dreams lately that I've been having, talking about in the woods. It's just that I would love to see at some point a way that I could have a little space to offer knit skill workshops and design patterns, and have all the free time in the world that's paid for. Anyway, dreamland. And have a vegan soup cafe, knit cafe. Okay, enough rambling, and I will leave you with my walk in the woods that I hope you enjoy. Hello. Welcome to Water Woman Knits. I'm again in the woods on my day off. There is a lovely place that is an area of, I'm not sure how many acres, but it is, it was saved from development by community, and so it's called a community forest, and it's part of the Whidbey Camino Land Trust land. And they're doing a huge project of managed forestry right now. So some sections of the land are unrecognizable to me from where I walked a year ago. But they have cut a lot of dead trees and cleared a lot of the land for more sun. I'm not sure. Don't take my word. I'm not a forester. I don't know all the details, but I just know that their goal is to have this be a healthier long-term forest. And it's just such a beautiful space that I thought I would just take you through a little bit of it. There's the sign for the Trillium Community Forest. This is one edge of the land, connecting trails. But this part, so far that I can see, looks like it had already been cleared or has not been yet. Anyway, I've been having some thoughts that I would like to talk about, which is dreams. Does anyone dream anymore? I know I'm challenged to dream of a future lately, and I have been thinking about how I read story after story of expats that leave the US and go live in other countries, and the common theme that I can see so far, I'm sure this doesn't apply to everywhere, but where places where people relocate, that financial stress, having less financial stress in their new home, is the number one thing that contributes to their well-being. And I was thinking about that, how for me, knitting has been, it's been what I have given all of my, disposable income. So that's income above your basics: rent, electricity, phone, healthcare, food, of course. And plumbing, of course, water. And so I was thinking about how for years I worked more than 40 hours, most weeks 60 hours a week for much of my life. And I'm now not ashamed to say I'm 58 and nowhere near retiring. But I just wanted to, I've just been reflecting a lot about how hard I had to work to just pour everything I had into this one hobby, because I tend not to go out to eat unless somebody else is paying. I don't travel. I haven't traveled in more than 20 years, other than one high school music band chaperone experience, which was a way for me to get a free ticket, basically, to travel, because I actually do enjoy traveling. So I am grateful for the fact that my 25-year-old car still runs. It's got less than 200,000 miles on it, and the inside is completely falling apart, but that engine is going to keep on going because it's a Toyota, and they just keep on going forever, basically. So I'm going to keep taking care of it, but that's, my one thing that I know that if it goes, I can't afford a new car right now. So, which is great that I've made my life in such a way that I don't need to drive very much. But I drove to get to a place like this, for example, on my day off. And I feel incredibly lucky to live in a place like, I found a place in the shade to lean against a fallen, well, not fallen, let's see. Well, you can see the tree root behind me, but it's kind of like stacked across a section, a path, I think intentionally, and it just makes a great leaning post to take a break in the shade. And I was just continuing to think about the fact that 1 in 3 Americans uses more than 1/3 of their income for housing. And housing is a global issue, obviously, but it's feeling pretty extreme in the U.S. in many places. And so I guess basically I'm just putting this out there in case anyone has any suggestions of jobs I could do, or I don't know, I know that knitting is not, unless you make a pattern that and you sell it, something that goes viral, that's pretty much the rare exception. Some designers do, but then they usually end up getting a team of assistants or staff, or support staff to help them. And at first it's very expensive to hire a tech editor and make calls for test knitters, and the whole process of publishing a pattern is just way more extensive than I originally thought. I have some great design ideas, but that's a whole different thing than getting it done. I'm going to just try to make a vest pattern that has been running around in my mind. I've been imagining how I'm going to connect all the pieces, and once I get that, I've sketched it, and once I get it figured out and then the mathed, perhaps I will put that out. But that's not a job, that's a passion, so I can't really count on that for income. But I was thinking about how in 2024, so last year, I applied to over 200 jobs, I think 205 to be exact. And I had 2 interviews out of that. And I had 4 professional resume reviewers review my resume and urged me, because of my age, to take out pretty much everything. So, because I don't think the way the world works in our society, I guess, I just proceeded to write myself. I titled it "Worthless Resume," and I took made a resume of all the things that they asked me to remove from a passable resume for jobs. And so now I'm just tempted to put my worthless resume out there and just see if, some of the jobs are clearly obsolete because I'm Gen X, and believe it or not, I spent 2 years tech editing library card catalog entries on huge IBM Selectric printouts. I don't know if anybody remembers those. These big sheets of green and white striped paper that you would, and so by hand, we're editing through this very complex editing language that we were taught specific to the Library of Congress. I did that for 2 years, so clearly that's obsolete. Library card catalogs, not a thing anymore, to my understanding. Then what else did I do? Oh, another thing I did pre-internet was, for almost 2 years, I was part of a 3-person team that were couriers from one university's library system to another's, to the University of Washington, which is the largest Washington State university. And I believe at that time, they may have fewer now, have consolidated their libraries, but at that time they had 24 different libraries on the UW campus. And my job was to drive from this other university in a van with requests from those students at that university's library, and then walk to each of the 24 different UW libraries and copy, like Xerox at that time, make carbon copies of all these articles, and then also check out books that were needed. So it's interlibrary loan, but it was completely physical, not digital. And it just blows my mind that, now we're with AI development, as it develops and displaces more jobs, I imagine I will live through another one of these eras where basically everything you did for, spent 4 years of your life doing is completely obsolete, which is, it's life, I understand that. But anyway, and another 2 years I spent actually delivering mail to my entire university campus during college. This was, and I looked back at records and I realized I worked 30 hours a week, up to 30 hours a week on that job, between 20 and 30 hours, while carrying a full-time course load. And I look back at my grades and I'm like, no wonder my grades weren't that great. And I did end up with a bachelor's degree, but anyway, and so I've just been thinking about like the wide range of stuff I've done. I've been a barista for 6 months, worked in a bakery for 6 months, those type of jobs. So when I say that I've spent more than 30 years now, which is true, transcribing human voice, sitting at a desk and typing full-time, more than full-time, that is true, but I also did other jobs, and often as a freelancer, I had multiple clients. Now I'm down to one, but while raising a child, I had multiple clients, and
it was, I did often work 60 hours a week. And forwent, is that a word? Anyway, I did not go to different family vacations, that kind of thing, to different gatherings, just because if I were to stop working, I would not have been able to pay my bills. So all this to say, I'm not trying to create a pity party, but I'm like, this is the reality for many Americans, and I know many people near retirement who just can't retire. And I just wonder what else I might be able to do after having. Oh, that's the other thing I was told to remove from my resume is much of my education, my academic education, because I did not finish degrees. But if you look at like a person that took, let's say, 3/4 of a degree course load, and they did well academically, like, why can't those classes be mentioned on a resume? Anyway, I'm just spouting, but I just wonder if anyone else out there has suggestions or ideas of how an individual might go about, like, getting co-housing situations, to make housing more affordable. I mean, I'm trying to do my own co-housing situation, but it does take a lot of effort to find an appropriate person that you can jive with, because it's one thing to have a friend, and then it's another to live with said friend. So you have to make sure that you can live with a housemate, I have found. In fact, that is an editing project I would love to do someday. I've had this on the back burner of my mind. I have a lot of stuff in the back burner of my mind for over 20 years. I wanted to compile and edit and write my own story, a little collection of stories called Roommate Stories. And of course, this would not be to demean people, to be mean to people, to make fun of people in any way. But I have had my own experiences and have met so many people that have like unbelievable roommate stories that I think it could be a good read, and I would be interested in like doing something like that. So I have great ideas of things that I could do, that I could publish, that I could create. And for some reason, I just feel lost as to how to do the next step. So I'm a great idea instigator, not so great on like the next step to get support to do the next thing. And when you're financially on the edge, it doesn't allow you much wiggle room to just, say, oh, I'll try this. I'll invest this small amount to get to the next step, or to get this great loan so I can get my such and such business rolling. Another idea that I've had is that I would love, this is in the dream category, is I love making vegan soups, and I love seeing how people react to a well-made soup when they eat it. It's so nurturing and nourishing, and I genuinely love the process of vegan cooking. And so I would love, this is so niche. But I would love to have a little space that I could set up a vegan soup / cafe for coffee and tea and vegan soups and breads. And so have part of it be that, and then part of it be a knit workshop space where anyone could come with any knitting project. And sorry, mosquitoes on my hands. That's the one downside of being in the woods, and staying still, motionless. Anyway, so I would love to have, like, invite people that are experts in one type of, skill, and have it open to people coming teaching, guest teaching, and having people feel like they could just come sit for an afternoon and get their questions answered on a project they're working on. So it wouldn't necessarily sell yarn and that kind of thing, craft supplies, but it would just be like a knit cafe to come sit and enjoy some nourishing soup. Anyway, this is the dream. So thank you for listening, and the rest of this long diatribe will be all focused on knitting, and I'll share an update on my projects. Thanks for hanging in there. This wild berry trail is so gorgeous. This little section, because it's such a narrow path that it's almost like animal path. And I love, when I was in college, I went on a trek to the Owyhee Reservoir on the border, I believe, of Oregon and Idaho. And it's such a gorgeous landscape that it was, years later I read that people were saying if it had more infrastructure built up for roads, which it may have by now, this was years ago, but that it could rival the Grand Canyon in its tourist attraction type thing. But I've had the opportunity to kayak on the reservoir for, I believe it was 7 days with a group of people, and there are many wild animals. I mean, wild cows in the area. It was like a certain breed that were native to that area. And so we would like literally just follow cow paths all over because there were no human trails. And I just loved that, like letting the animals create the paths for you. And honestly, I think this is part of my long-standing conflict internally with the way things are, is that to me, this is wealth. Right here. And that's why I feel so grateful to be here. But in order to be able to stay here, I need to make money. And to me, that feels very separate from what true wealth is. And I've been clinging to living here for 20 years. It's a fabulous place to raise a child. And after a period of life I went through where I did not feel safe, it was a great way to reestablish safety in myself and just a feeling of being embraced unconditionally by the natural world. So it's been a very healing process for me to live here, but I'm kind of questioning how long I can continue and what my options are. So this is a long-term thread I'm sure I'll keep coming back to, but just wanted to share with you this lovely space, and I should just be quiet so you can hear the birds. we'll stop for some salmon berries. These are tasty. I'm carrying something. Let me just point this down while I pick some. If they're high enough for the deer not to get, I feel like they're safe to eat. Although deer I have seen they're able to stand on their hind legs to grab something, but these are luscious salmon berries. They come in a yellow and a red, and I prefer, or yellowish orange. I prefer these to the red, but the reds just have more hard seeds. Kind of like the difference between a raspberry and a blackberry, I think, in texture. Oh, I think there's a red. Trying to get it to focus. I just remembered what I was trying to say. When I went on a trek in college to the river raft, the entire San Juan River in Utah, which I'm sure has a lot less water in it now than it did when I was there in the 80s, but that was really my first big trek, because up until that point I had been a back brace wearing, nerdy piano biology nerd throughout high school, and I just never thought I was capable, because of my back brace and asthma, of doing any treks, and that group was just fundamental to open my world in that way. And I've never stopped exploring nature since. But when I'm just pointing out these different flowers to you and things, it just reminded me all of a sudden that group, they got together and they decided, they gave nicknames to everyone as a group, and my nickname became Bio Experience, which I think is hilarious, but I guess I still do that. Like, I love learning about the different things I see, and not just their names. Like, often their names don't stick with me, but I'll remember like a story that was told to me about them, or, things like that. So anyway, that's what I was trying to remember. So, Bio Experience out. Some glorious foxglove. Wild foxglove just seeded itself everywhere. It's a beautiful June happening in wild meadowy spots. They're so gorgeous, but highly toxic to like dogs and critters, I think. But the bees just go up into those little tubes and have a field day. They're just so beautiful in their stalks. Here's a patch of purple vetch. I love these tendrils and the color, pop of color. And then just stopped because there's a bunch of equisetum, which is horsetail. These guys that live in marshy, wetter conditions, and actually are one of the oldest plants on Earth, I believe. I read that they are, along the lines of ferns being some of the oldest. But these equisetum can push through concrete almost, or cracks in concrete, and are very hard for gardeners to get rid of because they're actually made of something very similar to glass. Their stems are hollow, and they have these, they feel very like artificial, the texture of their spiny leaves. But yeah, so I just thought, fun fact.